You are with the Sound of Ideas from IdeaStream Public Media. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thank you for staying with us. The movie Lost and Found in Cleveland set attendance records at the Cleveland International Film Festival earlier this year, and now has its wider theatrical release this week. It has been described by the people involved with the film as a love letter to Northeast Ohio, and it features an ensemble cast made up of A-listers like Martin Sheen, John Lovitz, June Squibb, and Dennis Haysbert. Yes, Pedro Serrano from the Major League franchise making a return to Cleveland. Now, this film will be showing at over 500 theaters starting this weekend, including a dozen here in Northeast Ohio. So joining me now in studio, we have the team behind Lost and Found in Cleveland. We have Marissa Guterman and Keith Gerchak, writers, directors, and producers for the film. Welcome to the show.
We're thrilled to be here. It's so a dream come true, honestly.
We love it. We love the enthusiasm here on The Sound of Ideas.
We love it too. Yeah.
Very excited to have this conversation. If you want to be part of the conversation, you can give us a call at 866-578-0903. Maybe you saw the movie when it premiered, or maybe you're excited to see it this weekend and you have a question. You can email us at soi@ideastream.org as well, and you can message us on Instagram at The Sound of Ideas. All right, I want to kick off this story by talking about the way you two met, eventually working together.
Yep.
Now, Keith, I know this involves something that a lot of Northeast Ohioans experience. So I'll let you tell the story. Maybe there was some, you're from Cleveland.
A lot of that.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
I grew up in Cleveland. I was a child actor at Great Lakes Shakespeare Festival. We were at the Ohio Theater at Playhouse Square when none of the other theaters had been renovated. And there was an actor from New York who said, "Kid, it's a really tough business. You should get into something else." So I became an architect. And I was actually the architect. My client was Playhouse Square. And IdeaStream was one of my last projects in Cleveland.
Well, thank you.
Happy to be here. It's very kind of meta to be doing an interview here. But I moved to New York. I had packed my bags. I was like, I'm on the wrong path. And I moved to LA. And then Marissa and I met as actors at an audition in LA.
I picked him up in the waiting room. It's our little meet cute. He turned me down for a date, but I said, "Would you write something with me?" And he said, "Well, it depends." And I said, "What about a movie about Antiques Roadshow?" And he said, "You have my attention." And then I said, I'm not from Cleveland, but I do live in Cleveland. I came up on my own joke. I'm from Los Angeles, and I don't need to see a movie about Antiques Roadshow set in LA. He said, "I'm from Cleveland," and I laughed because that was my, understanding of what Cleveland was, all of the what's been perpetuated in the zeitgeist for over 50 years. And Keith's kind of like an ambassador for the city and said, "Don't knock Cleveland." And I love it, and I live here now.
Okay, yes, so we need to talk about that.
Let's get into
you
that.
You live here now. When
do.
did you make the move to Cleveland, and how are you feeling about it today?
Thrilled. I mean, I rolled out of bed and I came here. Oh, yeah. Check mark on that. We filmed here, and this has been a process of making the film. It's been over 10 years. So instantly I loved it when we came. Keith showed me,
I bought out the city.
He did.
It was
he continues
Snowmageddon, and it was, I think, New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, and the snow was falling. It was a blizzard. The streets were filled with snow. Nobody was out on the streets. We parked at East 4th, and she was like, "Oh my God, it's like we were inside a snow globe," which is actually the film ends in a snow globe. So it was very.
I was enchanted
circle.
Immediately, and then he kind of, we got out of downtown and we drove through the flats, and I saw the steel mills, and they just felt so cinematic to me and powerful. And then he took me to Shaker Heights, and I was like, well, this is beautiful. I just thought this kind of quintessential Americana only existed in movies. And it exists in our movie, but it does exist in real life in Cleveland. And so my husband, I convinced him to move to Cleveland honestly, it didn't take much convincing after we made the movie, and we've been living here for about a year now, and we had our little girl here who's going to be a year on Saturday.
Congratulations.
So she's a native Clevelander, Vivian.
Yes, Cleveland is stamped on her passport.
Born and raised.
You know it, baby.
And I will have to say I did live in LA for a while, about 7 years.
Okay.
And coming back to the snow.
Oh, yeah.
Always charming. I'm so with you on that, the snow globe vibe of it.
Yeah.
I've been back for a little while now. I still enjoy the snow. I do. Okay.
Absolutely. Get me a hot cocoa. Get me a sweater. Get me Lost and Found in Cleveland.
This is the season for it.
Tis the season.
It is. Let's talk about the plot. You've mentioned Antique Roadshow, which we do air on WVIZ PBS.
We are aware.
VIZ and PBS are part of the film.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about the plot for people who are uninitiated.
Yeah, well, I mean, it did start with Marissa used to watch Antiques Roadshow with her dad growing up.
I love Antiques Roadshow. I mean, I think it's a beloved program, especially on PBS, but just everybody.
Oh, 10 million people watch it every week.
Absolutely.
When you actually talk to people, it's almost like it's a dirty little secret. Like nobody's willing to admit it, but it's just such charming. It's the storytelling. That's what Marissa had said, was that it's the perfect structure for getting this in-depth look into people's lives and their personal histories that they're able to share, and yet you don't know, outside of what they're telling you in those 2 minutes, anything about their lives beforehand, and you don't know what happens afterwards, after they've found this out. And so we could have done a Best in Show, but that was just too, I don't know, we didn't want it to be a mockumentary. We enjoyed the structure of 5 storylines and being able to explore all these different facets. But I took my mom to the William McKinley Presidential Library and Museum in Canton, and I called Marissa from the parking lot, and I said, okay, we found the tone of the film, because it was charming, it was eccentric, there was like a street of shops and animatrons and a dinosaur exhibit and a planetarium. But they also had an exhibit about the Wizard of Oz, and it said that it was an allegory about the American dream. And it was set during McKinley's administration, where Dorothy was the common man and Tin Man the factory workers and Scarecrow the farmers, and that the yellow brick road was the gold standard and Oz stood for ounce, and McKinley was the wizard. And the guy behind the curtain was Marcus Hanna, who was a Cleveland politician whose house is still one of the 3 remaining on Millionaire's Row. And we said, well, what if we did a reimagining of the Wizard of Oz? What if instead of Scarecrow and Tin Man and Dorothy, we had a little boy, and we had a steel plant worker, and we had a mail carrier, and instead of a heart or a brain, they would have these objects that their lives are tethered to, that may be passed down or that they collected. And they would go to the wizards, who were the appraisers of Antiques Roadshow, who would say that the answer to your self-worth lies within. And at the end of the day, that's what the film is about. And it becomes not only a way of showing the rest of the country this is what all the Clevelands of the world look like, but it's also letting Cleveland see itself through our lens. There's a quote at the beginning of the film that's from Tennessee Williams that says, America only has 3 cities, New York, San Francisco, and New Orleans, and everywhere else is Cleveland. And, he didn't mean it as a compliment, but we took it as one. And we said, you know what, we're wearing that as a badge of honor. And part of our journey, this hero's journey of these 5 characters, which then became a hero's journey for us, was that the rest of the country doesn't factor into the analytics in Hollywood. They don't make films for the rest of the country outside of L.A. and New York. When you have theatrical distribution, it's 5 theaters in New York or 5 theaters in LA. They're not even looking at all of the hundreds of thousands of theaters that are around the rest of the country. And we said, we're making a film for the Clevelands. We're making a film for the Clevelanders of the country. And there's also a certain demographic over the age of 35 that doesn't necessarily factor into the analytics. And we wanted everyone over the age of 35 to also be able to go to the movie theater.
Sure. And everywhere else should be so lucky to be Cleveland, by the way.
Absolutely.
We agree.
Just so we are clear.
We are very clear.
I know it. Okay, so I want to ask you about the cast for this.
Please.
So, Marissa, I'll ask you, huge cast, ensemble cast for this. What's that like to get these kind of level of people to sign on for an independent film like this?
It's a thrill. Are you kidding? I still look at the poster and I'm like, what? We have Martin Sheen and Jude Squibb and Stacy Keach and John Lovitz and Dennis Haysbert, and I need to catch a breath, but it's just all of your favorite actors in one movie. And not only are they amazing actors, but they're kind of the most wonderful people. And they just showed up to set in Cleveland in January and fell in love with it. I mean, we're an independent film, kind of like PBS. We work hard. People show up because they care. And they read the script and they said, we haven't seen stories like this. It doesn't come across our desk anymore. And so, no one got paid very much to be on this. They did it because they loved it. They loved the craft, and they believe in the power of the story and the legacy of this film. I mean, June Squibb is just, she's having a moment right now, but in our opinion, she's doing some of the best work of her life in this film.
I want to ask you about the premiere at the Cleveland International Film Festival. I'll direct this to you.
Yeah.
Setting the record for attendance, what did that feel like?
It was incredible. I mean, to think we broke 2 50-year records, one for Playhouse Square, the highest attendance in the film screenings in the history of Playhouse Square, and then also for the film festival. And we had no idea. We hoped that maybe 500 people would come if we were lucky.
We didn't know.
And then when we saw that the line of people trying to get tickets was down Euclid Avenue past 18th, and the people that had tickets were walking from the garage, and then the redcoats were saying, no, end of the line's back there, back in the garage. And then to see just the energy and the appreciation and the civic pride and everyone wearing that as like that pride on their sleeve. It was very spiritual. It was very humbling. It meant the world. I saw people, I mean, there were thousands of people I didn't know. But then there also was like my second grade teacher's daughter was there. That was a very personal connection. And there's a little honor and tribute to her in the film. High Hopes is a song that my mom taught me that I used to sing at recess. The teacher would put me on a milk crate and have me sing it for the class. And she's passed away, that teacher, but her daughter came. And she said, you put High Hopes in the film for my mom. And I said, yeah, we did. Because we obviously had talked about it. And that was really moving. That was like a full circle, human moment for me.
Now, Marissa, having lived in Los Angeles up until recently, what was it like producing here in Cleveland? It's not a huge film infrastructure. There's a lot of great things happening, but talk to us a little bit about that.
Thanks for that question, because it's quietly our passion. The people that live here and work in the film industry, they're incredibly talented. They're resilient. They're like other Clevelanders. And, we didn't have a deep bench, but the people that were there were incredible. And we really banded together kind of like a family. And, it's not just the crew. It's the vendors. It's the locations. We work together with real small businesses. And so it's like we created this kind of community family environment. And we personally truly believe in the mission of the Film Commission and getting people here and changing narratives. And, why not have a great life and work in a fantastic industry and show beautiful locations? You don't need to spend $100 million on a Paramount lot in Hollywood. It's here. I mean, you can touch the wallpaper. There's just this authenticity about filming here that you really can't recreate.
Let me ask you about that theatrical distribution piece, Keith. You mentioned, how a lot of times it'll be focusing on a few in LA, a few in New York, but this is going to be playing in 500 theaters. So how did lining that up look?
We thought when we filmed that was going to be the hard part, and then we actually went through this distribution process. The industry changed after the pandemic, and then it changed even more with the strikes. And normal, everyday distribution companies kind of ran out of money. They just weren't getting any income for acquisition. And so there was a company that had just started that used to run the trade organization for all the theater chains. And they said, what happened to all the independent films? They just aren't landing in theaters anymore. And they wanted to be the bridge for that gap to get independent films back into theaters. And so we sent a cold email and we said, we're that film that you're talking about that audiences are craving. And then they watched it and they said, you know what, you're right. And we want you to be the inaugural release for our distribution company. And so we are. It's the Fithian Group, Attend. And we're going to be in 500 theaters. It was very important. We have spent months geo-targeting theaters and markets to be able to say, where are the post-industrial cities of America? Where are all the Clevelands? Where are the theaters within those? Where is the demographic of maybe an older audience that hasn't been able to see a film like this, and have truly been going theater by theater, neighborhood by neighborhood across the country, trying to book this film in those particular venues.
That is so thoughtful and intentional, and that is just lovely to hear. And also, I'm sure you know this, there are actual Clevelands in other states. There are a lot of Clevelands out there, literally and metaphorically.
Yes.
Okay, let me ask you before we wrap things up here, Marissa, tell us about some of the events and showings happening this weekend.
This is such a fun week. I mean, we got a proclamation from the city. It's officially Lost and Found in Cleveland Week, November 1st to the 7th. So we had our premiere, our VIP screening at the Rock Hall, which is a fantastic partner of ours. And today is going to be Museum Day. So the film, which was inspired by a trip to the museum, is featured in 2 museums. Mally's, which is one of our partners, our pink Mally's car is at the Western Reserve Historical Society. It's stunning. You've got to see it in person. Get your picture taken with it. And also the McKinley Museum that Keith referenced at the beginning, it has Charlie, our little Ralphie in this movie. His snowsuit is there and a bunch of other props that have to do with McKinley. Yesterday, we had West Side Market Day. Shout out to the West Side Market. I mean, all of the vendors banded together. Phenomenal. They had special tastings, and we had a little pop-up. I mean, talk about a dream come true. As somebody that loves Cleveland and the West Side Market, getting to be behind the booth, we filmed there, but really getting to be a vendor for the day was a dream come true. And then, you know, we're lighting up the Terminal Tower on Friday. We're doing pop-up appraisals. So Move Over Antiques Roadshow Lost and Found is taking the tour to Cinemark Valley View on Friday at 11
o'clock for
Yep.
AARP. Yeah, we have AARP screenings at Canton. That's tonight, right?
That's
Yeah,
tonight,
I can't believe
yeah.
it. Previews start tonight. We're in 12 theaters across Northeast Ohio, and the 500 nationwide. AARP screening at 5 o'clock. They're doing a pop-up appraisals at 3:30 in North Canton Cinemark. And then tomorrow, Cinemark Valley View will be 11 o'clock for the pop-up, 12:30 showtime too. 12:30
yeah.
showtimes for AARP. And then we'll be there. There's a step and repeat that's there from the Rock Hall for people to come and take their picture in front of that.
Mally's is doing a chocolate drop
at two theaters.
Two theaters. It's the Atlas Shaker Square, the 5 p.m. showing, and then the 6 p.m. showing at the B&B Macedonia.
Right.
So fun.
Yeah. So it's really...
They're bringing the pink truck.
Yeah, it's really been a wonderful way to celebrate the release of the film and have just a tribute to all of the vendors and everybody that's been involved in it.
And we are across Cleveland. I mean, we're in, I think over 12 theaters. So if you want to find us, you can. We have previews starting tonight. Come out and see it. Come out and say hi. We're going to be at a lot of the events. And we're so grateful that people want to come up and tell us what the movie means to them and the representation of Cleveland. It's just been, I think that's the most meaningful part of this entire experience.
I'm going to give our audience members a challenge now. If they go out to one of these screenings and they see you, post a photo on social media, tag us on Instagram at The Sound of Ideas. We want to see it. Thank you very much, Keith and Marissa, for being with us. Lost and Found in Cleveland.
Thank you.